Let's do this.
Good evening, folks. Sorry about a wee bit late. Cat's having some technical muck-ups, for want of a better word. I would say something else, but I'm not going to, because I'm not that kind of person. But we are hopefully doing, fingers crossed, the Exercist house tonight. I think Cat's joining us just now. She has been popping in and out, but it's due to her internet. But anyway, thanks very much for coming in. Everybody, hi, Mr. Cat Doll. Hope you're doing well. As I say, tonight we're doing the Exercist house. But we'll just tell you about the last 3 or 4 days. We've had quite a busy. Hi, Kirsty. Hi, Andy. We've had quite a wee busy time. We started filming Our Darkest Mile last Wednesday in Edinburgh, so we've got the promo done for that, and the first episode's near enough completed, and we'll get that uploaded onto YouTube as soon as, and then we're 3 investigations thrown in, which is on our Facebook, and yesterday we done a PIH road trip, which saw us going away up to what do you call it?
Glenfinnan Viaduct.
The Glenfinnan Viaduct. Cat's away again. See, this is what I mean. Cat's away again. So we ended up there to see the Charlie Potter train. Not a Charlie Potter train. Harry Potter train. Sarah will tell you, because she's a fan.
It was the bridge that is featured in the first 2 Harry Potter movies.
Right. It's the bridge.
Yes.
And it was in the films.
Yes.
And we went to see it.
Yes. It was.
Right.
It's been on my bucket list for years, so we done it yesterday. And it was good timing because we managed to see the Jacobite steam train going over the bridge, which was fantastic.
And as you can see, we've got John with us. Now, while we're waiting and Cat coming back, hi, Carol Doll, thanks for coming in. While we're waiting and Cat coming back, hopefully she will come back. The girls, before we went live, were talking to John just about, his house, basically. And he never quite got to finish answering the questions, did you, John?
The questions were along quite strange lines.
We only asked you if you were a murderer. That was all.
Hi, Kirsty.
That was it.
Hi, Frankie.
And we complimented you on your colour scheme and the fact it's very matching.
And the lights are nothing to do with the plants.
Yeah.
That was my question.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it legal, above board, professional, PIH crew. But yeah, it totally looks like
PIH
a weed
crew.
in the background.
You make it sound like once again. The PIH crew are here. Right?
So just to clarify, John, your plants are definitely legal.
Yeah,
They are 100% legal. For the purposes of Facebook and YouTube, I can confirm that. So.
He's just naturally relaxed in demeanour.
Been all that road a good few times. Folk going to want to see the train. Was beautiful. I love it up there, Missy Cats. We come through Glencoe and what have you as well. It's absolutely beautiful. We thought we'd treat Forest to a bit of real Scottish culture. Instead of taking her to Glasgow.
Then she did a deep fried pizza tonight.
She did.
Deep fried pizza. It's a way forward.
I mean, she's 24 and she's never had a deep fried pizza in her life. Never.
You've been doing years.
Regressed.
You've regressed through the years.
That's what deep fried pizza does for you. So eat it, get younger.
Have you had an iron brew up there, Forrest?
No, well, you see, I used to drink that as a young one anyway. That's everywhere, isn't it, really? Plus, I can't have it anymore because it's got forest poison in it. I can't have anything with sweetness. So deep fried pizza was the safer option.
But she did have tatty scones.
Tatty scones, aye. And I had a massive ice cream sundae today, full of like fudge and toffee sauce and badness. But it was so bad, it was good.
Straight after eating chip shop.
Deep fried pizza is raw. Kirsty, imagine you saying that, doll.
No!
Deep fried pizza is the
Biz. It is the best. I know I keep doing. I know I keep losing half my head, but it's because I've had to move my chair to let the couch in so the ladies can sit in it. So I do have more than half a head. There's Cat back. I'm just going to read some of these comments. Deep fried. I've never seen the appeal of deep fried Mars bar, Frankie, to be honest with you.
No.
It's never really, Tatty scones, aye. Haggis, no.
No.
I know I'm a Scotsman, but not haggis. Not haggis. Haggis.
I like haggis.
Iron brew. You can't beat it. When we go to Pendle, we bring a truck full of stuff with us.
Gonna need it.
And we've got Mark Joe. Hey Mark, thanks for coming back, buddy. Yeah, we're all well. You's well?
Tired, but well.
Well,
Yes.
full of food, but okay.
Excellent.
Could be doing my wee nap to nap all the food off, but yeah, we're good.
Right, good. I'm so glad. So glad. That you back with this, Cat?
Yeah, I changed phones, and hopefully my husband's phone, he's got the settings worked out on it a little better. So
Excellent.
you guys definitely sound better.
Hey, Paranormal History. I wish they would put their name in the comment. You know what I mean? A pint of Tennant's and McEwen's. You still get McEwen's. That's pale ale McEwen's.
McEwen's export.
Yeah,
Aye, Tennant's Lager. That brewery's still in Glasgow. It's been there for decades. But anyway, on with the show tonight, we've got Kat from our USA team who is going to be talking to us all about the Exercist house. Kat, Kirsty put up this comment earlier on, looking forward to the story about Robbie Mannheim.
That is one of the names that is attributed to the gentleman that it happened to, yes.
So I'll hand it over to you, Kat. It's all yours.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Sorry for the delay. I'm Tabby Cat from the East Coast of the United States. And I'm going to be speaking a little bit about one of the most famous possession stories that there has been in our current decades, is based on a true life happening in 1949 with a young 14-year-old boy. And it inspired a gentleman by the name of William Peter Blatty to write this book, The Exorcist. Mm-hmm. And The Exorcist was then in turn made into a large screen TV movie in 1973, which made such great headlines because of its content, its graphic scenes in it, and also just the overall theme of the film. And it couldn't have come at a better time in that period of history because cinema was filled with so many love stories and feel-good stories and things like that. And The Exorcist came out right about the time that people were getting just a little bit tired of mush on the TV screen. They and the big screen. They wanted to see something different. And so when they came out with The Exorcist, Blatty wrote his book, based on not only seeing an article in the New York Times, which was also featured in the Washington Post, because the actual happening was based on a true life incident that occurred with a family that lived in Mount Rainier, Maryland, which is Prince George's County, Maryland. And it just so happened that I grew up and lived within just a few miles of that area. So I was very much familiar with it after the film came out. And the fallacies involved in the film and the truths involved in the film. Now, I'm by no means an expert. I have done just a great number of hours of research into this, especially after it first came out, because I went to my local library, and that library had stacks and stacks of old newspaper articles. You could reference it in their old-fashioned Rolodex, all the cards and everything. And I found the actual article that one of the local gentlemen who wrote it in 1949, his name was Brinkley. And he just spoke briefly about a young boy in the area that was exorcised of demons or the devil in the local area. That in turn got picked up by a number of different newspapers, including the New York Times, which is where Blatty first saw the article. He did his own research, and like I have, it turns out that when it was based on a true story, he was only able to get just so much information, because once the family moved out and moved away from the area, they really wanted to be anonymous. And he respected that privacy. So he never put any indication in his book as to who these people were, what their last name was, or even exactly where they lived in Maryland. Because his story was based on a young girl that was in Georgetown, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C. And after he wrote the book and did his research and the film came out, then it spurred a whole lot of other films that came out. But it was probably one of the scariest. I mean, you watch it today. As a matter of fact, I went ahead and watched it again yesterday. And when you look at it now, because of all the new stuff that we have, the CGI and the animation and so forth, you can make it 10 times scarier than what it was. But I have to admit that while some of it was a little on the cheesy side, what really got to me was the sounds that the young girl was making in that film. The soundtrack behind it was just really incredible. And based on my research, back in the early 70s, I don't really even know exactly when it was found, and I kind of find this a little bit suspect, that the place in St. Louis where the family took the boy initially for tests. I mean, he had been in Georgetown University Hospital to have neurological tests run on him. But let's face it, in 1949, you did not have that kind of technology back then to look at the brain. You didn't have CAT scans. You didn't have MRIs. All you had were X-rays and a form of, just looking at the brain in general. And so they sent him to St. Louis for extra tests. And a lot of the stories were said that, the boy had the word Lewis somehow or another carved into him. And so they thought that meant they should be going to St. Louis for his cure. And there's really not that much of an indication that he really did have all of these things carved onto him. But they ended up going to St. Louis because they had a big, huge hospital there that could run a lot more tests. And once they did it, they discovered that as far as they were concerned, he didn't have a neurological problem. He had psychological problems, and they didn't want to deal with that part of it. Now, the family itself were Protestant, and yet when they lived in Mount Rainier, they thought perhaps they should have some clergy to come and talk with their son, excuse me, hairball, to come and speak with him, because it is said that his aunt, I believe it was the mother's sister, was not exactly a practitioner, but a fan of spiritualism. And she enjoyed reading cards, using the spirit board that sort of thing. And the boy was fascinated with that, extremely fascinated. And he loved his aunt, from what I could understand. And so when she passed away, this kind of threw the boy into a tailspin. And because his family were very, not exactly what I would call strictly religious, a very staunch people, they were very prim and proper, and they did not like the fact that he was delving into this. They really didn't like it. So when the aunt passed away and he went into a tailspin, suddenly all of these things started happening. Now he's 14 years old, and this is just my own opinion, but from everything that I've read and everything that I know now, as I've gotten older as a medium, and knowing the various different facets within the paranormal, I don't doubt, let me make it clear, I don't doubt whatsoever that demonic possession is a possibility. I've never come across anybody that has ever really seen anyone or done anything about it. I don't doubt it. But there are just too many things involved in this particular story that I can't help but wonder. Now that we know that poltergeist activity isn't just limited to the spirits of the dead, it can also be associated with the living. And that means that they can be people such as what you would refer to as pre-adolescence or puberty, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of young people that have poltergeist sort of abilities because of that. It's a biochemical thing, and nobody can really explain why it is that some people are able to maneuver things with their mind, without touching them, to be able to make the lights flash, that sort of thing. And he was 14 years old, and his voice was just then starting to change. So you got to figure he's an adolescent. He's going through puberty, big time. His hormones are raging. He's got a great deal of grief going on about his aunt, and his family not wanting him to have anything to do with spiritualism because of their religion, their religious convictions. So you top all that together, you put all that together, and what do you get? You get a huge mixture of emotions, a huge mixture of physical and spiritual energy just going through this poor young boy. And once he realized that he could get attention, suddenly all of this was happening. And my mother's next door neighbor told me, and he was a University of Maryland police officer and very reliable. One of these kind of people that he did things on facts. He looked at the facts before he did anything. And he told my mother and I that he lived less than a block away from where this family lived. And he remembered the boy in school. Now, he was a couple of years younger than the boy, but he remembered him and thought he was, very nice, very talented young man. He was very good at sports, very good in school, very well-mannered, never did acted out in school or anything. Yet the moment that he got home, they said that he just would throw fits, and all of the neighbors would hear a ruckus going on in the house. And nobody could explain it. And, back then you didn't call the cops on your neighbor. You just didn't do it. So if there was any kind of child abuse going on or any domestic violence going on, you kept your nose clean and you didn't stick your nose in. You just stayed away from it. Nope, none of my business. Not going to deal with it. So if people heard strange things going on in this young boy's house, they didn't think anything of it. They weren't thinking, oh, this kid's got to be possessed by the devil. But once he was looked at by a number of physicians, the only thing that they could come to the conclusion of was send him to a shrink. Send him to somebody that's going to examine his head and find out what's in there. And unfortunately, a lot of people couldn't afford that kind of care back then. It wasn't on your insurance. So the next step would be to perhaps contact somebody in the clergy and have them come by free of charge. You know, your spiritual leader. Come by and talk to the boy, see what's going on. And when that happened, then the boy started acting out. He started becoming violent. He started yelling profanities. He would throw things at him. He would scratch himself. And the next thing you know, everybody around him is like, oh no, something is terribly wrong with this boy. And not thinking that it's psychological, but now it's got to be something spiritual. However, those that did examine him in Mount Rainier and at Georgetown University told the family straight up, you need to go and see a specialist. You need to go and have the boy looked at by a hospital that is better equipped than what we have here. And also get him away from the house, get him away from the family, get him away from his school, get him totally away from everything that he's been familiar with, just to see how he's going to react. And as it turned out, the mother's brother lived in St. Louis, and they had a darn good hospital there. So they decided to take the advice and take the boy to her brother. And as it turned out, they took him to a hospital, had him checked out, and the next thing you know, every time they had someone that had any kind of religious affiliation, suddenly he was going bonkers again. It really didn't happen in the hospital. It would only happen after he got back to the uncle's house. And every single time that they brought in somebody from the clergy, it would happen again. So, of course, the first thing they're going to assume is, well, if he's acting out when we're in the house and holding up the cross and throwing holy water and saying things in the name of Christ and Mary and any of the saints and everything, if he's going crazy because of this, there's got to be a theological reason for it. It's no longer physical. It's no longer neurological. There's got to be something spiritual involved here. And it only happened when the Jesuits got involved and then the Catholic priests got involved. He was always fine, for the most part, whenever they were gone, just alone in the house with the family. They could go out visiting places, and he would be fine. But the moment he came back home, all of this would happen again. Well, in the mid-70s, the one place that he had, the boy had been taken to have a few of these exorcisms performed was a theology hospital. If I remember correctly, I think it was a Jesuit hospital out there. And it just so happened that the people that owned it were getting ready to tear down this one section of the building that had been there since the 1800s. And they very conveniently found a locked room in a wing that they had been using up until now, but suddenly they come across a locked room and they go in there, and in a desk they find a diary. And in that diary, it is claimed that it was by a Father Raymond Bishop. And this Father Raymond Bishop, typed, and you can tell it was typed on a typewriter and so forth, that he was a participant, if not just a witness, to some of the happenings with this boy. And he wrote down everything. And I read it from top to bottom. And there's some things that I find interesting in it, where he explains all of the things that were flying across the room, how the boy was reacting to things, that suddenly welts would come up onto his body, and they would interpret that as being words on his body. That his voice would change. He's 14 years old. Of course his voice is going to act weird. But
Yeah,
they
comes-
never did one. Yeah. So, I mean, his voice is going to sound strange to begin with. And then if he's throwing a hissy fit, it's really going to sound weird. Not once did any of the portion of the diary mention that he was speaking in tongues or that he was speaking in a strange language or anything. They also didn't say that he had knowledge of things that they never told him. You know, things that perhaps a demon would know about some of these people because they sat out their minions to, you know, gather information and bring it back. None of that happened. All he did was yell, scream, throw things, shake the bed violently. And he had, you know, quite a bit of strength. Now, I don't know. I have never found any medical records on this boy, but I'm sure if any.
Oh,
It's just froze again.
that was good going then.
Apologies, folks, I think Cat's frozen again, but what we'll do is we'll just stick some comments up while we're waiting on her coming back. Hopefully she will come back because we were kind of enjoying that there. It was reported the Exercist happened at 321 Booker Road, Mount Rainier, and the boys' home was actually Cottage City, Maryland. Possibly, we don't know very much about the Exorcist story. I don't know if John knows anything about it. He's sitting there all quiet and serious looking. Right?
I was really enjoying it. I was engrossed in that. I think the main thing I've heard about it is that the film had a lot of issues when it was being made with people getting hurt and things. That's the main things I've heard about it, really. Have you heard that as well, or is that just me?
I heard that there was a few mishaps on the set, same as the film Poltergeist as well. There was meant to be, and then some members of the Poltergeist cast passed away. Also, that young girl as well. I heard there was, and they said that the film was cursed and what have you. But to be honest, with The Exorcist, I vaguely remember it coming out. I do remember that when it first came out, they were handing out sick bags in the cinema as the people went in. I was too young, believe it or not. I was too young to go to cinema. When it came out, I can see in the camera the look, the smirk. I mean, so I do remember them saying they were giving out sick bags. I can see you two sitting laughing behind me.
That's our job. We're female.
Welcome back, Kat.
I don't do nothing.
I swear, I think it's got something to do with this thing. I mean, my goodness, somebody just does not want me talking about this stuff.
Well, continue whilst we've got you. Interesting.
I'm good, Kat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put up comments for you.
Scott will disappear before then. Just let her continue. I was getting right into that there.
Oppression, obsession, and the first X says oppression and obsession. Infestation, oppression, and obsession. Yeah, well, that's kind of general, though. I mean, when they say infestation, you know, yeah, oppression and obsession. I mean, it's all a matter of interpretation. You know, they were looking at, you know, the signs based on what their criteria was. And that's how they were looking at it. And so if you have to go down the line and check the list of all the things that this boy was doing in order for them to get permission to do it, then by all means, yeah, that's probably what it was. But nowadays, if you look at all of the signs of what was going on with this boy, they would never consider it to be a demonic possession. They would consider it to be some type of mental illness. And the fact that they had him on a lot of drugs and things like that in order to keep him quiet. And so you can't help but wonder, well, what would the boy have been like if they hadn't started pumping him up with drugs? And we know now that there are certain drugs that you can take that cause a human being to have extreme strength. What is it? PCP and a few others. It causes people to be, abnormally strong. I mean, they could lift up a bus on this stuff. And
Steroid.
yeah, it's just incredible, all the things that they would give people back then that we now know are not good for you, especially if you've got a mental illness. But once everything started with this young boy, it just became a snowball effect. And the more they did, the more he acted out. The more he acted out, the more they did. So it just was a feed cycle. And this went on. Let me see. The first thing that they started doing was in February, and they continued on back and forth in St. Louis. They brought him back to Mount Rainier for a short period of time. He started acting out again. He was fine when they left St. Louis. Brought him back to Mount Rainier. He acted up again. They took him back to St. Louis, and it started up again. And they didn't finish until April. Yeah, they started in February, and it didn't end until April. So for that many months, they had him in and out of hospitals. They had him examined by a number of physicians, all these tests run. And the whole time that this was going on, he was fine with the family, but very bad with the priests. And the next thing you know, he's free of it. It just all of a sudden, bam. And according to the diary, it wasn't like it's just suddenly that little boy says, they're gone. Like, ho-hum, they're gone. All right, they're gone. And it just kind of shakes me up to think that, yes, the demon itself wouldn't just, that sort of thing. But no, it wasn't the boy the demon that threw up a fight. It was the boy that was, throwing all the fight and everything. And as I said, had any other signs of demonic possession other than just the ones that they did the check mark, just enough for them to go through with it. But I just find it really interesting that the diary that was found all typed up on a typewriter in the 70s, they found it in the 70s, because you can see just by the look of the paper, if you look it up, you can actually see the physical paper that it was typed on. That's not a 1940s typewriter that did that. That's more of a 1970s type of typewriter.
Oh,
Typewriter.
The Exorcist took a...
I think typewriter was what she was going to use. I do apologise for this, folks.
She was a bit glitchy before she left.
She was a bit glitchy the 4 stages. Once we had, there's me back again.
At least it's quicker now.
Hi, Sam.
Yeah.
You back with us?
Yeah, 4 stages of demonic possession. Yeah. I think it's just a matter of interpretation. Each denomination of religion has their own criteria for demonic possession. Because especially nowadays, when you know more about mental illness and everything, you have to rule that out first. And with a lot of religions now being more accepting of the paranormal, especially with worldwide interest in all things paranormal, they're looking at other possibilities, such as adolescent poltergeist type of activity, just general anxiety. We no longer call it multiple personality, dissociative personality disorder. I think that's what they call it now.
Mm-hmm.
And so they look at all of those things now before they even consider the possibility that somebody might be possessed by a demon. And when you look at all the serial killers in the world, you know, some people would automatically say, oh, well, these people have to be possessed by demons. There's no way that they could act like this normally without having a demon inside them. Well, it's been pretty well shown now through science that people who have this kind of disorder that become serial killers and, you know, really do strange things, there's something wrong up here. And it's shown in tests and everything scientifically. So you can't help but wonder, 1949, no real equipment to do a brain scan the way we do now. The awful drugs that they used to give people that were, you know, acting violently. It's all a matter of interpretation. And then there's other people that take it on faith. Yes, the boy had to have been possessed. He says that after everything was over and done with, one gentleman went to visit them in 1950, and he supposed that he didn't remember anything that happened. Now, let's face it, if he didn't really want to hold up, the neighborhood anymore.
Cat, you're glitching really bad.
They couldn't help it.
Cat, we never caught a word of that, though. You're glitching really, really bad there. You back with us? I think she's frozen again.
That is very true.
That's true, Sam. Yep. You back with us, Cat?
That jaggy thing up my trousers.
Frankie's saying it's a black cat.
What's the black cat?
It's a black cat on the chair. Who's doing it?
Time for a musical interlude. Maybe.
Exorcism have been around as long as religion, but at that time the Vatican didn't want to expose.
Right, we need to kick cat out that's on screen and put the other cat in.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Sorry about this, folks. We're just trying to fix this.
And then add that one.
So what's your thoughts so far, John, on it? Anybody in the chat, do you think maybe it was he was acting out? Oh, this is back.
I think it's like what Sam said just then. It's the minute anything bad happens, the thoughts just turn to demons all the time.
That's part of the problem.
You back with us?
Yes, no.
Hello.
Sorry, Joe, what were you saying? People are too
We've got a
quick
storm
to.
rolling in. I think that's part of it. We've got a tremendous storm rolling in, and it's blocking that signal. It is blocking here.
Oh, it's a demon.
Cat, if we lose you, don't worry about it, though. We can carry on.
We can do a part 2.
We can do a part 2 if we do lose you. But John was just saying there that some people are just too quick to jump on the demon bus. Basically, as soon as something negative happens, they blame demons. I think a couple of people that said the same things. But they do, demons get blamed. I'm not sticking up for them by any means. I mean, I'm not saying they're good guys. but they do seem to get. That's a demon. It's got to be a demon. There's another demon. They're everywhere, but nowhere. You know what I mean? Andy's saying, that's the thoughts of those who don't want to believe that demons exist. You have to know that when you call it out, you could call you. That's true, Andy. You know, you have to know what you're doing when you're calling things out, you know. But I just feel that people are too ready these days to stick the demon stamp on things.
Yeah, not every negative
You know.
spirit or negative thing that comes through is necessarily a demon. It could just genuinely be an angry spirit.
Give an angry spirit, negative spirit, somebody who's grumpy in real life. You know, Mr. Cat says there's some brewing down there as well. Sorry, carry on, Cat. Where you are.
No, I totally agree with the fact that people are just too quick to jump on having a demon everywhere. You know, it's like, just because something has decided they're going to push on you, or somebody that has decided to scratch you for some reason, it's got to be a demon. It's got to be a demon, because only demons scratch you. Only demons do this. Oh, I'm sorry. I had a little girl at a location one time. She wanted my attention in the worst way. And I'm not real good with kids. I don't have kids, never have had kids, so I'm not really attuned to children. But she wanted my attention in the worst way. And I just wasn't paying as much attention to her. And the next thing I know, she grabbed a hold of my wrist and she squeezed like the dickens. I had a couple of marks on my hand. And I looked down and I saw them. And the first thing somebody said was, "Oh my God, it must be a demon that's trying to get a hold of you." And I said, "No, it's just this little girl." I wasn't paying enough attention to her. So what do you think she was doing? Anybody that's got kids, or even animals for that matter, if you don't pay attention to them right away, you know, especially when some kid is going, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, mommy," and you're not paying any attention, what do? They act out. They do something to get your attention, whether it's to come up and smack on you or grab you or something, or pinch you, something like that, just to get your attention. And a lot of times spirits are wanting to get your attention, and they don't really know any other way, because they're sitting there going, "Hey, hello," and you're not responding. So they're like, "Okay, well, maybe if I poke them," but they don't realize that maybe that poke just might end up leaving a huge mark on your arm, because they just don't know how strong they are. Now, that's not a demon. But as far as The Exorcist is concerned, there's just far too much that has been written, and far too many things that have been documented about this case to not accept the fact that it definitely happened. It was definitely real. All of the incidents can be verified. The addresses, the people involved, and everything, it all can be verified. And yet there are still some that look at it from a point of view that, like I suppose you could say I do, you have to kind of wonder if there wasn't another psychological reason for it. And if something like that were to happen today, it would never be considered demonic. It would never be thrown up the chain of command and said, "Hey, look, take it to a priest and have them throw holy water on them and say a bunch of prayers and make sure that kid is strapped down onto a bed." And Fergus, get out of here. Sorry, go away. But you have to accept all of that as a possibility, that all of these things were going to happen to this boy at that period of time, based on the knowledge, based on what people believed. And let's face it, if it weren't for the fact that all of these priests were doing this, the boy probably would have continued to act out for a while. But once it was finished, it was like, bam, switch just came off and he's fine, no problem. You know, everything was great. And when the Exorcist film came out, because Blatty had to go by the privacy rules, you know, of the family, the boy who was, you know, like in his, let me see, he was this was in the 40s, so he was born in the 30s. So he was in his late 40s, I think, by the time the film came out. And so you had to change things up. But I find it so interesting that whenever I'm talking with people that don't know the actual story behind The Exorcist, that the first thing they say is, well, I know that it's based on a true story, but it happened in Georgetown. And I'm like, no, it didn't. It happened in Mount Rainier, Maryland. Well, what about the house that they lived in? Well, the place is now a daycare center. Excuse me. It's, the family, long since moved out and everything. Well, yeah, but what about the staircases that was, involved in that? Well, that's in Georgetown too. But if you look at Georgetown, when you go there, the stairs that you see in the film where everybody got thrown down and the house that they lived in, they're not even in the same neighborhood. They're two different locations, all over the place. But I think the reason that people look at The Exorcist and now, well, I guess you'd say back then, like when I first saw it, the reason that it was so scary was because of the possibility that something could happen to you that you had no control over. And that's what I think was the most frightening thing. It wasn't so much that it happened to a child, but it's just that something could take you over that you didn't have any control over, and that you had to have outside forces to take it on. And it happened in Cottage City. Well, yeah, Cottage City and Mount Rainier are right there. They're right there on the dividing line. Cottage City, I think, is just a little further south. Beg your pardon. My uncle was the chief of police in Mount Rainier, so I guess that kind of stuck in my head too. Beg your pardon, Andy. But the whole thing just had to do with control and losing control of oneself. And at that time, the special effects and everything, I have to admit that even for its day, the makeup, which was a little bit on the corny side when you look at it now, especially her eyeballs turning green and so forth, that was one thing. But the person that did her voice, Mercedes Rule, the person who did the behind the scenes with the audio, speeded up her voice, slowed it down, changed the tone back and forth to make it sound as though the voice was fluctuating. And the actress even admitted that when she laughed, it made for an even more weird laugh because she was a heavy smoker. So she had this raspy sounding laugh when she did it. And once they played back the soundtrack for her with Reagan or Blair laying in the bed portraying the demon, listening to her voice coming out of this thing, Rule said that it gave her nightmares. And she's like, oh, that's my voice, but it's coming out of something like that. And it scared the crap out of her. And if all of the other successive movies made about The Exorcist were stinkers. I mean, they were horrible. They never should have been made. And what's a shame is that they never really touched on anything but the ancient part of demon possession. Because in the original film, and I think in another one, they really capitalized on this demon called Pazuzu, which was from Iran. And that's what that big statue was that you see in the film and everything. And the little head that Marin found on an archaeological dig. And so they automatically assumed that the demon was an Iranian type of demon because of this statue. And nowadays, when you hear that people are summoning Zozo, guess where that came from? It
The
came from
Exorcist.
Pazuzu a long time ago. It's just a stylized thing of Pazuzu. And for me, I think that was pretty freaky too. With at the very end of the film, when Linda Blair gets up on the bed after she's knocked down, the one priest and the other one's looking up at, she's standing there doing this, and you can see the silhouette of this demon statue behind her. So there's this connection between the two. And yet, the second film, I think, it shows Marin in Africa somewhere, exercising what is supposedly the same demon. That supposedly the demon that knew that Marin was coming was the same one that had possessed this boy in Africa. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense that here, if this was an Iranian demon, what would it be doing in Africa in the first place? And then now all of a sudden showing up in the United States, when demons are generic. they don't have a nationality. They come just about anywhere, and who knows where they came from. And also that the boy always claimed that he was possessed by the devil, that I'm the devil. And like it says in the film, when the one priest went to talk with her, and he says, well, I'm the devil. And he tells the mother, well, look, it can't be a possession, because he claims that he's the devil. And the devil doesn't possess people. That's too generic. It's got to be something in her mind that's going on. And so there's so many interesting little facets within the film itself. And I really urge people to watch it. And watch it with an open mind. Forget about the cheesy special effects that go on. But another thing that really got me, and it gave me chills and nightmares, being a paranormal investigator, once I got into it, years ago, using a tape recorder in order to get EVPs. Now, back then, of course, it was reel to reel. And he was using a reel-to-reel tape recorder in the film to get some of the voices that were and the noises that were coming out of Reagan at the time. And he was hearing all this strange stuff, and he took it to a person that told him, oh, yeah, that's English. But, because he was thinking, well, oh, okay, I got it down now because she's speaking in tongues. And the guy says, no, she's not speaking in tongues. She's speaking English, but it's backwards. So he plays the tape backwards, and you can clearly hear 3 or 4 different voices going on the whole time that this is going backwards, saying various different things. And that sends chills when you listen to that, because we now know as paranormal investigators that sometimes you hear something on your recorder, but other times you have to actually put it on an audio program, and you have to tweak it. You have to dial it in. You got to take away the noises and the pops and the noise reduction. And you might even have to slow it down or speed it up a little bit to take out the background noise. And then suddenly you're able to hear it. So when he did this with a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and it played it backwards, very, very audibly, you could hear these voices and these noises and everything. I sat there yesterday and just got chills. I mean, no special effects, no nothing, just a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and something that could really happen now if you were to do it now. Play it backwards in reverse and listen to it. Mm-hmm. And the noises that would come from her the whole time that this was happening. She made noises like animals, similar to like bulls snorting, and almost like cows, almost in agony, and almost barking sounds and everything. And there's absolutely nothing in any of the diary or anything that this boy did anything of the sort. Absolutely nothing. But when Blatty decided to make this into a screenplay, they did this, and that was a darn good idea, because it was one of the freakiest parts of the whole thing, was just listening to this noise coming out of her, knowing full well that it's not human. This is not human. This is her. This is not a little girl. This is something else. And all of the various different remakes of this film and all of the subsequent exorcism and possession type of things, they all kind of come from this film, from this story. Almost every single thing that I've ever heard of, from authors to screenwriters and producers, whenever they have done any kind of possession film, it all comes from this. They've all either read the book or they've seen the film or both. And they've taken pages out of it and looked at it and thought, this sold, I forget how many millions of copies. The film grossed, I forget how much, and it's still making money today. And you've got to cash in on something that works. So the true story of the boy, whether there's inconsistencies or not in the various different eyewitness accounts, the documented accounts, how you want to look at it, and what he made into one of the most chilling stories of possession that will probably ever really be made. It's phenomenal. It will never end. People will always look at this as the blueprint for anything that they want to do, whether they consciously think of it or not. This is going to be the blueprint for it.
I think it is. It's the it certainly sticks in my mind as the kind of biggest possession film of all time. And the thing is, as you say, Kat, the amount of films that have been made after it, people have looked at The Exorcist and said, well, we can do that. And they've tried their hand. They've made a film, but as the old saying goes, it's never as good as the original. And it's the same as a lot of sequels, look at Amityville, for instance. How many films have been made about Amityville?
Don't get me started on that one. Don't get me started on that.
But, about Amityville, or there's some kind of Amityville connection to the film, and I've watched some of them and you think, no, I'd rather go and burn my toast than watch this, basically, because it's just crap, But that's the trouble with these kind of things. People are always going to be looking for that thing that's going to make them money or going to make them a success, and they'll just jump on any wagon that's going by and say, well, I can do that. I can make it. But the Exorcist will always stick in my mind as the film. And I know it's not the true story, a lot is it's kind of based on that story, and a lot of it was like Hollywood and what have you, but I still think it was brilliant when her head spins round. I don't care what anybody says, that was the best bit of the film. When she done a 360 with her head, I thought that was great. I wish I could do that, see who's behind me.
I've never watched it.
Never seen it. I need to watch Exorcist.
For me, that was one of the stupidest. For me, even when I went to see it the very first time, when it first came out, and her head turned around, I laughed because I thought, oh my God, this is so ridiculous. They put, have this stupid body and they had this little plastic head on a swivel and they turned it around. And, it's just weird. It really didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I thought that was probably the stupidest part of it. But the rest of it, I thought was, except for the eyeballs, the contact lenses that they put her. But I guess they had to kind of show her as not being human anymore. And that made a lot of sense. And let's face it, if they were to redo The Exorcist today, and I mean not take the book and try to do it the way he did it, but just take the movie itself, the original movie, and take the original script, which was fantastic. I mean, all of the characters in that film were just great. They were believable and so forth. They were absolutely great. The dialogue was believable, and the reaction of her mother to all of these doctors telling them, well, I'm sorry, we don't know what's going on with her. Hey, she was throwing 4-letter words out there like nobody's business. And so back then, yeah, there was an awful lot of profanity in a lot of films back then. But the way she reacted to things, the way the priests reacted to things, the way the homicide detective reacted to things. But it dragged on in a lot of ways, especially in the very beginning. It dragged on. It took an awfully long time for it to really get into some of the scary stuff. But in the long run, take that exact script and put it into another film, a current film, with the type of
Excuse me.
I think she's gone again.
I think she's gone again. Sorry about that, folks. Kirsty Murphy's saying it's been redone and should have come out last year. And she's back.
See, now I just want to listen to the reel-to-reel recordings. Where do I listen to them?
YouTube.
Do you reckon they're on
Can you listen? See the reel-to-reel recordings you were talking about? Is there some way you can listen to them?
If you're I'm referring to the reel-to-reel that's on the screen, the ones that's in the movie and everything. If you were to listen to what they do in the film, when the priest goes and takes his reel-to-reel tape recorder, and then he takes it to a person that, listened to her voice and realized that it was talking backwards. Now, I don't know that there was any kind of recordings going on at the actual exorcism. I don't think so. There's no indication whatsoever that there was any recording device. There was no photographs. There was no recordings. There was nothing. And I don't know if I find that unusual or what, but there may well have been, but there was nothing in even the diary indication that any recording device was done at the time. And so it's kind of strange. But yeah, anyone that's listening, anyone that's watching, take The Exorcist out on video and watch it. Kind of fast forward a little bit through the beginning of it a little bit. But once it gets to the part where she really, the young girl starts having some issues and everything, it really gets better. It's got some cheesy stuff in it, but it is freaky. And I guarantee you, when you listen to the sound of her as a demon,
She's gone. Frankie says no thanks. So what do you think, John, about it all?
It does sound, because I didn't know much about the mental health aspect of the true story, so I think it kind of sounds maybe that's the more realistic version of it, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've learned a lot
And back then, obviously, as Kat says, the tests and the brain scans that one, never had what we had today for people to pick up, and so some people just assumed the child was possessed, basically, and that was it. But obviously these days, I think we get a whole different diagnosis rather than he's possessed or it's a demon. To say too many people do. You fall asleep.
Gesundheit. Bless you.
Now, for the busy 4 or 5 days, we've been out doing investigations and what have you. We were filming Edinburgh last week and they were out all day yesterday. So I've had them earning their keep, as they say.
We're just stuffed.
And then he had a massive, the big chippy the night, and you want to see the tub of ice cream that they had. It's that size, it's just disgusting, really.
It was disgraceful.
No normal person should be able to eat that much.
I didn't have ice cream, I had cookie dough. Really, 3 different chocolate sauces, 2 different types of chocolates. Curls and then the actual cookie dough itself.
Do you know what I mean?
Have we got any more?
Do you know what I mean?
Got trifle.
But because you're having tech problems, I think we'll wrap it up there for tonight, Kat. But I think we need to have another wee second part to this flower. We'll get that organised.
It was lovely, Misty. And we've got a trifle to go and scope now.
Oh,
I'll try to talk to everybody and you talk about trifles.
Because Misty says, oh, lovely girls.
Oh, sorry, Misty. I never seen that comment there, dog. Sorry. My apologies. My bad. I'm the bad one again. I'm the ogre.
That's why I was saying that it was
Yeah,
lovely
again.
and we've got a trifle to demolish now.
I'm
Because,
going to help you eat a trifle before I go back home, haven't I?
yeah.
I've got a trifle with a trifle.
Andy's saying, cheers, guys. This story opens up debate, which is always good. Well, I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a live from next week. Kat, what do you think? And we'll turn it into a kind of debate. So I think, we'll be on the panel and the people in the chat are welcome to come back, as always, with the, the different theories and what have you, and we can kind of throw them about. What do you think in that one?
Frankie says, trifling wrong.
That's trifling. Good one, Frankie. Good one. But we'll wrap it up there for tonight, folks. Many, Kat, thank you so very much. 2 seconds. Comments keep jumping up and I can't grab them. There you go, Kat.
Okay.
Thanks very much. That was interesting to see your fur babes too.
Okay.
Now I'm really jealous, Sarah. Frankie says, thank you. Very interesting story of the end. It was really interesting. So we'll schedule a live for next week and we'll have a wee Exercist debate and see what people say about it. But Kat, thank you very much for taking the time. I know we've had a couple of issues with the Wi-Fi, but that's technology. Thanks everybody for coming in. If you want to see what we've been up to the last 4 or 5 days, you'll see it on YouTube or Facebook.
If I stop eating long enough to edit it.
I just need Sarah to stop eating so she can edit. She needs to replace the eat with the edit.
I can't help it.
Eat and edit.
You need
we're back.
Go on, John.
Aye, but
You need to be fueled. You can't edit without fuel. So
Exactly.
well, the amount that they've had today, they could edit for a year and not touch anything else. Like camel, just store up,
We've got a trifle to demolish now.
There's Frankie. Hurry up, want to see them. There you go. It's Frankie telling you, get a shifty on.
Right
and
after
get
these
footage
trifles.
on.
Right after my massive trifle that's like this.
Right, okay.
It's going to be trifling goodness.
That's us for tonight. We're back in Wednesday night with the American team again. Kat, you are welcome to come on as always as well. Wednesday night we're going to be doing the Bell Witch with Jennifer and Matthew and Kat. If you're free to come on, you're totally welcome.
Okay. All right.
And then we'll be doing another live investigation out and about somewhere, not saying where. We will be out again this week somewhere. And Saturday we've got Robert Crowe and Jerry Gonzalez from they're part of CRA Entertainment. They were on the quiz last week. They're coming in just themselves to talk to us individually. So it
And
was all good.
Wednesday we're filming as well.
And Wednesday we're back into Edinburgh for filming the second bit of Darkest Mile. So it's
A busy week again.
it's all busy. But thanks very much for coming in, folks. Take care, and we shall see you hopefully on Wednesday. So until then, as they say, until then, take care. Bye.
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 Stay safe, everyone.